This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. Welcome in episode number 81 here, the Healthy Scratch interview segment on the Huskies Warming House podcast. I'm Noah Grant, joined alongside Nick Maxon. And Nick, we were joined alongside a co-host of yours, a new co-host on a weekly show going on that you were a part of. What have you been up to in relation to our guest, and who the heck is our guest this week?
Someone with the last name Micheletti. That's all you have to know. Yeah, right. Who? I've never heard of him. No, it's Alex Micheletti. It is for those who are putting one and two, yes, it is the son of Pat Micheletti. And the big reason why we had him on this week, Noah, is because he went to school at Mankato.
Where?
He was I know, right? Some Division II school somewhere. I have not a clue. I know, right? So we felt it was fitting to bring him on to kind of preview this weekend's number 1 versus number 2 matchup, even though it's only week number 2 in college hockey. Holy heck. And honestly, Noah, a little side note, for the Huskies fans who are upset that the Huskies are number 2 and not number 1, you beat up on basically a first-time Division I school. We can have the discussion of whether UMass should have been number 1. They were, and Mankato swept them. So they rightfully jumped the 3 spots from 4 into 1. And I'm not worried about, this weekend as far as, I think it's going to be a tight series. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in this episode. But me and Alex are actually joining the Soda Pod. We had our inaugural episode last week. Our little segment is called the MNCAA. See what we did there? No pun intended. But we have a representative from each and every school. I'm representing St. Cloud. He again is going to be representing Mankato. Still filling out the other 4 spots as we speak, but we'll be providing weekly content and hype for each respective schools on the Soda Pod, which is branching out into the college hockey realm. And also maybe provide a little bit of Minnesota Wild talk, although we're going to be primarily focused on the college hockey scene and the happenings, therefore, between at least our St. Cloud State Huskies and, again, the other 6 schools here in Minnesota. The actual state of hockey, UMass, no, you are not the state of hockey. So that's who we have on this week. And no, I kind of want to actually kick the question you normally ask me to you. For a guy with Alex, and he's got the hockey bloodlines, no question. There's some expectations of maybe some knowledge, and there's no question he definitely knows this stuff. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say this matchup this weekend is going to be a hell of a matchup between Mankato and St. Cloud. So tune in wherever you are. But on Alex's side, I think the thing that is really enjoyable about him is that he combines that knowledge with a real, casualness to what he does. And that doesn't mean that he's, lackadaisical in his prep or his knowledge. It just means that he's able to, really relate in a way that feels like you're just sitting down having a beer with the guy and talking hockey. And I think that's really impressive, the way that he does that. So that was my favorite part, is just getting to listen to him talk about, that knowledge and do it in a way that doesn't sound like me, where I'm trying to be overbearing about it most of the time. So
like you when you ask multi-part questions.
Yeah, exactly. Although I think this was the final debut of a multi-part question for a certain co-host on this show, but nonetheless, we're going to do some college hockey. We're going to talk about some Minnesota Wild hockey, and we're not going to keep you waiting. Alex Micheletti in episode number 81.
Welcome back to the Den Husky Warming House podcast, fans. We are now on episode 81, and holy cow, do we have a fantastic episode for you. Number 1 versus number 2 this weekend coming up, Mavericks versus Huskies, and we couldn't find a better person to break down what could be one of the better hockey weekends of the season, and we're only in week 2 here, Noah. And joining us very graciously, Alex Micheletti. Alex, thanks again for joining us, man. Happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to make my debut. I've always wanted to be on here, so couldn't pick a better time for 1 versus 2. And I'm actually going to the game on Friday with my dad. So yeah, looking forward to being back down in Mankato as a Mankato grad. And so it's been a while. So definitely looking forward to being back in the rink.
Hey, question: does loser cake taste better in vanilla or chocolate?
I like it. Yeah, we'll see. It should be a fun weekend either way. I'm just looking forward to some great hockey. I think it should be a battle for both teams. So yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, as we said on our Twitter page about a week ago, we'd be happy to quote unquote redirect you and give you any quote unquote tips that you are looking for as we head into game weekend. Speaking of your dad, I believe he's with a certain very eloquent broadcaster in this realm this weekend. Can you kind of tell us what he's going to be up to?
Yeah. Well, he does some TV stuff with Nick, but he's filling in on the radio for Friday with our guys so down there. So yeah, I think he's going to really look forward to doing the radio. He's been doing a lot of TV, so it'll be nice for him to do some radio with Erickson, and yeah, it should be fun.
Jim is he's a wonderful broadcaster, number one. And number two, how you couldn't pick a better sort of way to do this, right? Number one versus number two. I think, and it's interesting, Alex, we look at the non-conference schedule like months ago, right? We saw that these old Minnesota rivalries from the old WCHA were going to be playing together. There was already excitement that was brewing from that, right? But who would have thought that second weekend of the season, we're talking a number one team in the country versus number two. I mean, the game has already hopped up enough before, this last weekend's results, but now it's at a whole different level. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. I mean, and both teams are just rock solid. They have depth. They both have great goaltending, amazing coaching staffs on both sides. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better weekend, and it should be rocking. Both fan bases should be down there because it's not too far of a drive for folks from St. Cloud, and Mankato will have their side of it all full too. So yeah, that should be amazing, and bring back the old rivalry, and plus you got the trying to make some revenge from Frozen Four for the Mavs and for St. Cloud to keep up the bragging rights. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and get the band rocking too for with the students. And so yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Well, I think I speak for Huskies fans everywhere. Twofold. One, we're happy that you beat UMass. We'll take that any day of the week. And honestly, that hockey game in the Frozen Four between Mankato and St. Cloud really could have gone either way. Both teams, it was one of those games where both teams really did deserve to go to a national title game. I mean, I think we can all agree that could have been the national title game in a lot of years. But speaking of players that get to a title game and kind of motivate themselves to get to that position, Dryden McKay, one of the best goaltenders in the country. Last year, he was maybe snubbed. I kind of want to get your opinion on that with the award. And I believe he is part of the first wave of new CCHA award winners in CCHA 2.0 league history this week as well, too.
Yeah, he got goaltender of the week. So not bad when you shut out the defending national champs on Friday and then complete the sweep on Saturday, or shut them out on Saturday and then complete the sweep on Sunday. So yeah. And Nathan Smith got forward of the week. So, but yeah, Dryden, I think he really deserved the Richter. He's one shutout away from tying Ryan Miller's shutout streak at 26, which, no matter what era in college hockey, it's incredible. And no matter who you're playing, if you shut out your opponent, you're doing something right. And he shut out the Gophers in the national tournament. So I don't know what else he had to do to prove it, but whatever can motivate him again, I think he'll put that, it's a chip on his shoulder, and he's out to prove people not only, because he's one of the smallest goaltenders in college hockey too. You would say 6 feet, but I think he's 5'11", and you don't, with the way goaltenders are going, you see 6'3", 6'4", like it's nothing. So it's pretty impressive what he does at his size as well. And yeah, it all comes down to technique and how you play in the net there. So.
Alex, I think, the size or the height, kind of just depends on which convenience store he's leaving, honestly. That's the way I see it. But you talk about Mankato and St. Cloud, both of these squads are almost sort of built from the back forward, right? I mean, both these clubs have got very deep defensive cores. They've got that rock and net. How important is Dryden McKay to the success of the Mavericks for this season coming up?
Oh, tremendous. They do have a lot of depth on their back end. But I mean, he stirs the pot, he controls the game. And his D-core is so incredible too. They, if you take a look at when they played UMass, I mean, they almost outshot him. And so they really, the defensive structure that Mike Hastings, has, it just, it sucks the life out of teams. If they can get a lead, they really, shut down the opponent and really frustrate them and limits the chances for Dryden, and so he can see the puck and, just really it just the opposing teams, they just don't know what to do out there, so it makes his job easy, but when he has to, stop the tough ones, he's been doing that his entire career. So yeah, it's impressive to watch for sure.
Alex, I've got kind of a two-parter for you because that's my custom, my style. First,
it'll be 3 parts. Just be aware.
or 7. We'll have to decide. First, it's kind of a common question that we ask a lot of the players that go to St. Cloud State. But you've got Pat going to the University of Minnesota. You've got us as St. Cloud State alums. What kind of moved you to the Mankato area, and why did you want to become a Maverick?
Yeah, I absolutely fell in love with the campus down there. It's amazing. It's not too big and it's not too small. And it was an hour away from where I grew up. I grew up in Eagan, Minnesota, and so also wanted to go to a school that had a D1 hockey team. And so I visited St. Cloud too, and but yeah, just fell in love with the campus life down there, and at the time the Verizon Center. Now it's a long name associated with Mayo Clinic health system, but the hockey games are so much fun. The student section was great, and got a chance to work for the team down there when I was at school from 2009 to 2013, and so had the Troy Judding years for a couple of years, which were a struggle, and then Hastings took over and completely transformed the hockey team and brought some energy to the community again. And it's amazing to see the powerhouse that they've turned into, and now have been the number 1 team in the country a couple times in his tenure. And so yeah, a lot of fun to watch, and that's why I chose to go down there, and getting the chance to work for the team was fun as well.
My dad actually grew up in Eagan back when there was 11,000 people there. So it's grown a little bit, I would say. And he was also not a Troy Judding fan too. So let's just throw that one out there as well too. And went to the University of Minnesota. So we got a lot of problems going on there. Before I ask my second question, I also have a fun little story for you. So when I was playing hockey in college, we used to, when we were traveling, used to stop at various campuses across the country, usually at their cafeterias along the way when you're traveling. And Mankato was actually one of the places that we stopped. And we used to do this thing, what was called shoe checks. Do you happen to know what shoe checks are?
I don't. Give it to me.
Yeah. So what shoe checks are is essentially while you're eating a team meal, it doesn't, obviously it's kind of on the road. You wouldn't really do it at home, but when you're on the road at a cafeteria, because there's potentially hundreds to 1,000 people that you don't know in the cafeteria. What you do is you take a particular food item or a particular sauce or something, usually a food item because you don't want to get ruin people's clothes, but you have to crawl under the table or in some way without the other person noticing, take this food item and put it on the tip of their shoe and get back to your seat and then tap your glass. And if you do that successfully, the person who has the food item on their shoe has to do whatever the veterans of the team tell them to do. I have been shoe checked one time in my college hockey tenure, and it was actually in Mankato. And what the guys had me do is they had me grab an orange and get on my hands and knees in the Mankato cafeteria in front of everybody and push it with my nose across the cafeteria and say, beep, beep, I'm a Jeep, all the way across the cafeteria. So that's my memories of Mankato are a little bit different I think, Alex, than yours. But I wanted to ask a little bit about the matchup this weekend. When you look at the St. Cloud State, roster, is there a particular player, a particular line? What stands out about St. Cloud State as a Mankato fan preparing for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, St. Cloud has always had a lot of speed, and the depth has always been amazing. Going back to the Motzko days, but now with Brett Larson too, he does a fantastic job recruiting. He's got amazing assistants that help him with that, and Dave Shayak, and so yeah, a guy that I've talked to Nick about last week is Zach Okabe. I mean, he's had some experience playing Mankato. He's had a 4-goal game in the past, and so which
just
was
a little
unbelievable. And it happened here at Uchi too, so that was crazy. But the Brodzinskis, what an amazing family, and another amazing player leaving his mark on the career. Another guy, Micah Miller. I've always loved his game. Going back to the high school days and the high school hockey tournaments, and so yeah, just always amazing depth, and the blue line is always fast and big, and I'm looking forward to seeing a guy like Jack Pert, being a Minnesota Wild fan and helping out on Locked On Wild podcast. So looking forward to seeing him, and Sam Henches too. Another Wild draft pick. So yeah, something to look forward for Minnesota Wild fans too, to see if they can make it to Iowa, and then maybe at some point in their career get a call up to the big squad in the Minnesota Wild. And then David Rennick, has always been calm and collective back there in an LA Kings draft pick. So anytime you get a drafted goalie, that definitely helps. So the goalie matchup between him and Dryden should be fun. I'm expecting a couple low scoring games, but it could be the complete opposite. the way these teams scored the first weekend. Seriously.
True. Alex, for the Huskies fans that are watching us here throughout the week, you just mentioned numerous St. Cloud players. We're definitely all familiar with them. For those who may be not so familiar with Mankato, their roster, and, I think Dryden McKay is certainly a college hockey, but how about some forwards or defensemen that the Huskies fan should really be paying attention to, or maybe just as a casual hockey fan, players that are just fun to watch, is just so good at what they do?
Yeah, you guys saw a little bit of what this kid can do in the NCAA tournament last year, but his name is Nathan Smith, junior forward. He's from Tampa, Florida, which is amazing. He started playing roller hockey, and had no really connection family wise to the game before, and so it's amazing to see the growth of college hockey too. He's a Winnipeg Jets draft pick, and I think he's going to play in the NHL. He's a big kid. He's physical. He shoots the light out of the puck. He's amazing on the power play. He's him and Julian Napravnik, who I mentioned to Nick last week too, a kid from Germany. He's the last of the couple German pipeline that the Mavs have had, going back to Mark Michaelis, who signed an NHL contract, and Parker Toomey, he's playing over in Europe right now. He's a kid, another sniper, who had a fantastic weekend. Nathan Smith had 5 points over the weekend. Watch out for him. On the back end, you got Akito Hiroshi. He is, an amazing puck-moving defenseman. And he's also got Jack McNeely back there, fifth-year guy who came back with the COVID years from Elk River. And also one of his high school teammates, Benton Mass, who was a transfer from New Hampshire, Washington Capitals draft pick. So, Mankato dipped into the transfer portal as well. And then also to complete the trio of Elk River kids, Reggie Lutz came back for a fifth year, and he also had a really good weekend, scored on Friday, the game-winning goal, 55 seconds into the game. So, yeah, those are some of the guys to watch out for from Mankato.
We've talked a lot about it in St. Cloud State hockey. It took them 92 seasons, 92 years to finally get to a national championship game. Mankato has kind of been in a similar position in terms of their NCAA tournament appearance. I believe 0-6 last year before finally punching their ticket to the Frozen Four. One of those players too was Ryan Sandlin. It would have been really neat to see him match up against his dad in the national title game as well too. What does it mean for this Mankato program to finally see them have success at this level and kind of make themselves known in the national spotlight?
It means everything. It means a lot to recruiting. They continue to get better and better guys, which is huge. And you're seeing it in the transfer portal too. Getting a guy like Ben Mass from New Hampshire. They had a Michigan transfer and then a Clarkson transfer as well. So that that helps so much when it comes to recruiting, because that's the name of the game, right? You have to get the players in, just as as a fan base too, they you can finally say, hey, finally got in the win column, and also just for alumni too, it's huge that they put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get to the where the program is now. And just the way they did it too, coming 2 goals down against Quinnipiac, everybody thought it was over, and then they tie the game late and then win it there in overtime. And so it was huge. Also huge beating a team like the Gophers too on that in the national stage. It shows that they can beat the top of the top for programs, and they're showing it now, beating the defending champs on the road. They raised a banner, and so this program, you get a couple wins in the national tournament, and you just get confidence, and you bring it into this season now here. To get a chance to play St. Cloud, another top team, and if they can play well this weekend too, they got the icebreaker next week, which you potentially play. So you play Providence, and then the winner or the second game would either be Michigan, who's stocked with first round draft picks, or the Bulldogs. So helps pairwise down the road, and just fun to see. These monster matchups at the beginning of the year. I wish more teams would do it. It really challenges it and it gives you some adversity to start the year, and helps you down the road for sure.
We've talked about a lot of painful moments for St. Cloud State hockey, and we've talked about it with some players too, former players. Robbie Jackson was very candid with us. Nick Perbix a couple weeks ago had talked about the AIC moment and what that meant. Alex, for the Husky fans, I'm going to ask you, what do the words Nolan Walker mean to you? And more importantly, have you actually, stepping back from it, have you learned to appreciate the redirect on that play a little bit, or will it forever be a memory that will be etched in painful lore for you as a Mankato fan?
Seeing that GIF gives me nightmares all the time, but it was an amazing goal. You have to give Nolan credit. It was just incredible. I'd rather see a goal like that than just happen to bounce off somebody's shoulder and in. It was the perfect goal. Dryden was in great position, and it just went in. It was devastating, but you have to appreciate it. And it was a battle of a game. Both teams, had their chances, and couldn't ask for a better goal. If that's how it was going to happen. So yeah, I appreciate it. Nolan's a hell of a player. Comes from Alaska all the way down to St. Cloud. So, credit to finding a kid like Nolan, and he's fun to watch, and looking forward to some more memories down in Mankato this weekend and having a full crowd. We've all missed having full crowds, and so you couldn't ask for a better rematch. 1-2 in Mankato in a rocking building. People can drink, and so that will be. Yeah, that always adds to something. And so, really looking forward to it.
I'm going to take a page out of my co-host's book and ask a 2-parter. Yeah, here we go. I promise I never do this, but here we go. I'm breaking my own rule. We'll start with part 1. Alex, we talked early in the show about having, and actually I tweeted this out earlier, 4 Minnesota teams in the top 5 here week 2. That's insane. We haven't seen this sort of respect for Minnesota college hockey in some time, right? I think we have to go back to the old WCHA era to really find this. But, you know, when you have the situation that we're in now, where you have all this attention on the state of hockey, and especially now, just not for the pros, but in the collegiate program, I guess, you know, what does it say about the state of college hockey for these programs and around the state? I mean, how good is it to be a college hockey fan here in the state of Minnesota right now?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, it says a lot about the coaches at all these schools, and now including Rico Blase at St. Thomas. You know, they had a tough first weekend, but he's an amazing coach. He knows how to recruit here in Minnesota too. And with all the stops he's been at Miami, he built them into a powerhouse and kept them as a powerhouse for a long time. And so, yeah, it's amazing. You know, Mike Hastings does an amazing job in Mankato. You got Tom Serratori up top there in Bemidji. You know, they made the tourney last year too, so that's fun. Scott Sandlin, you know, has always been great at Duluth, and they lose a couple assistants over the years, and he still keeps things rolling. St. Cloud, you know, you lose Motzko and Larson takes over, and still keeps them, you know, at the top, and even better, I would say. So yeah, and then you got Bob at Minnesota, and they are starting to turn things around, and I think this is going to be the best team he's ever had this year, just with the freshmen they brought in, and yeah, so it says a lot. The best players are coming out of this state. We have the best coaches, so you know this is a fun time to be not only a fan of your own program, but of all the teams here in Minnesota for sure.
And then to follow up on that, Alex, you know, we talked about COVID, and we've talked about how, you know, almost in a way we've asked our athletic director, Heather Weems, you've asked numerous other head coaches, you know, this non-conference schedule that we saw, right? And we saw the Huskies playing the Gophers, and then Wisconsin, and then Mankato, but Midgie's later on in the season. Obviously St. Thomas this first weekend. And as you mentioned, they will improve. In fact, when I talked to Rico before the games this weekend, his answer was very poetic. He's like, you know, how awesome is it to be here at the Herb, where, you know, there's no doubt he's smiling down that a sixth Minnesota squad is now a Division I. Like, essentially, that's what he envisioned, was to continue to grow the game. And this, you almost can't think of a better way. But, you know, to have this kind of excitement second week of the season it's not something that we've seen often. If you were the head commissioner per se of Minnesota College Hockey, would you continue to support and encourage these early sort of non-conference games between these in-state clubs? Because not only does it generate interest, when the clubs are this good too. I mean, we're talking going back to when Mariachi was full and Verizon Center, they're full. I mean, again, we're not even midway through October. We've got a marquee matchup this weekend. Should they continue this type of scheduling years forward here from here on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it brings back all the old WCHA conference rivalries. Fans can drive to games, which is huge, and see their team on the road. You know, I think that's so much fun too, and you know, to keep building interest in college hockey. The games are you know, not as expensive as going to see the Wild or, you know, going to see a Viking game. So, you know, it's not as expensive. And you know, I think the best part is a lot of these kids played against each other in high school too, so they can, or in junior, and so they can keep up those rivalries that they had when they were younger. Yeah, and it's just fun. You know, there's nothing better than having both fan bases in the same arena, and they can chirp each other. And yeah, it just creates so much fun, get the bands into it, and the cheerleaders and everybody involved. You know, that's the best thing about college hockey is the rivalries. And so I think too, with cutting down costs, with everything, you know, with COVID still going on, I think it makes sense, you know, to have teams be able to drive then instead of having to take a plane. So, yeah, I hope they continue it. It'd be fun to, you know, get the Big Ten and the CCHA teams to play each other a ton at the beginning of the year. It not only helps, you know, like I said, create rivalries again, but can help in the pairwise too. And that's the name of the game. You know, it's not a committee that just, individually picks, teams to go. They have that computer system. So you gotta win on the road. You got to play some top teams, and why not with how the Minnesota teams are rolling. And then you got Wisconsin close too, so, and North Dakota. So.
Yeah, great for the growth and investment in the game of hockey for people, especially in the Midwest, because I think that we're a little bit inclined to be, near and dear to the old WCHA and what it really brought us, kind of the golden years of college hockey in the early to mid 2000s. Before we get to some Minnesota Wild talk, Alex, I suppose it's only fitting, since you're a Mankato fan, we're St. Cloud State fans. Why don't we get some predictions for this weekend as to what we think the games are going to end up? Is it going to be a split? Is it going to be a sweep? And what do you think the scores are going to be Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, I went split last week for Mankato, and I thought that's what was going to happen, and so, but I almost had it on Sunday, and then they scored 5 unanswered, which was incredible. Right. I did not expect that. So, talk about facing adversity and coming out on top over it. I'll go with the split again. Both teams are incredible. I can't see a sweep either way, but if there's a sweep, color me shocked. I'll say I think both games will be low scoring, just with how good the goaltenders are. I'll say Mankato wins Friday night 2-1, and then St. Cloud wins 3-2 on Saturday.
Right.
I'm gonna piggyback it off that. No, I'll be the voice of St. Cloud. Almost flip-flopped. I think St. Cloud is gonna come in on Friday and actually pull out the victory. I'm gonna call it 3-2. On Friday, I'm going to think a 1-0 shutout for Dryden McKay to tie Ryan Miller on Saturday. Both these teams are so stacked up, down, in the front, in the back end, and in goal. The one thing that worries me for a St. Cloud fan is just, Verizon's an NHL rink. Is that correct? The dimensions? Yeah. So they showed that least amount of space in St. Thomas, and also not taking 10 to 11 penalties a game, hurts them too. So I think it's going to be a little bit of an advantage for St. Cloud on Friday, just because, they're going to be a little bit more hyper focused to it, I think, on Friday, after kind of a little bit more of an adjustment Saturday with St. Thomas at the X. And then with Mankato having a bit of a chip on their shoulders, I do think they're going to come out, lock things down, really try to take the speed away from the St. Cloud and come away with a 1-0 shutout on Saturday. I can't see anything about a split. And no, I think me and Alex would agree. If a team does split, this is not, barn doors being blown off. These are going to be very two close, highly contested contests down there at the Verizon Center. It's going to be great hockey theater to watch, and I'll must watch, me personally, if you're a college hockey fan. Yeah,
I think I'm going to go with 3-1. I'm going to go with 3-1 Mankato on Friday night. And then I'm going to go with a 4-3 overtime victory for the Huskies on Saturday. I think the OT is going to come into play at least once. The reason I'm going with Mankato on Friday night is simply because of the fact that they've waited 6.5 months for some redemption. And you've got a lot of that core returning, and I think they're chomping at the bit. You got a lot of the core for St. Cloud returning too, but I think they're chomping at the bit. And I think the emotion and the adrenaline is going to kind of carry over into that first matchup. And then I think the Huskies are going to settle down on that Saturday night as well. Nick, do we have any more college hockey questions that we wanted to throw out, or do we want to kind of turn our focus to some Minnesota Wild stuff?
I think we can certainly turn our focus to Minnesota Wild. Interesting, Alex, actually today, Wild picking up Rem Pitlick off of waivers, and it's surprising not because of, just the move for Rem Pitlick, right? It has implications on some of those younger forwards, especially. I can see that we have a line threat there from Noah Grant. For those who are listening to the audio podcast, it looks like, Mr. Noah Grant, or should I say Coach Grant, has tried to come up with his own, forward line combinations. But this does sort of lead, at least I think, and I want to get your opinion on this. It seems like Bill Guerin has, in between the lines, right, has kind of hinted that Marco Rossi, as good of a player that I think he is, I think there's a giant hint that he may start in Iowa. I'm not sure if you get more of a sense of that. You agree with it? And does the Rem Pitlick pickup on waivers, does that kind of solidify that some of these young players are back doomed for Iowa?
Yeah, I think so. You hit the nail on the head. I think, him and Kalen Addison on the back end too, just with all the guys, the depth defensemen that they signed late there. I don't see the purpose of him, just sitting in the press box. So I think, more time in Iowa is okay for him. And then Rossi too. He's still getting up to full speed with, after COVID and everything. So yeah, I think, signing Rem, because by signing him, if they were to try to place him in Iowa, they'd have to put him on waivers again. And so that just doesn't make much sense to pick him up and then have him, be snatched up in waivers. So, I think he's going to be given a big chance to make the club. A guy that has really impressed me is Adam Beckman. Mm-hmm. He's really pushing to make the team. So, that I think, he's still right there to make it. I hope he does get a chance at some point, just because the kid can score. So and he's cheap, and so that's the name of the game too. In the NHL is finding those cheap contracts that you can fit in on the third and fourth lines, and that's going to come into the play with the buyouts of Parise and Suter here too, when they take up a big chunk of the salary cap for not even being on the team. So, but yeah,
come on, I think it's only $14.5 million, Alex. What's the big deal?
Yeah. So, Billy G's got, Billy G we trust. I think he's done an incredible job so far, changing the core around, and they've hit on a couple of their past drafts. So, it's fun. Got another Russian coming here soon too, to join Kirill and Kuznetsov. And so, yeah, it's fun. Can't wait. And we got a number one goalie too, that in the future too. So it's fun. We'll see how they do back in the Central. It's going to be a lot tougher than these cupcake teams that they were playing out west and in Arizona and Anaheim and San Jose and LA, that just weren't very good teams. So it'll be fun to see them play Chicago again, and Dallas, Nashville. Get all those, and St. Louis, get all those old rivalries going again. Really looking forward to it.
Interesting. You mentioned the cupcake teams. There's been an interesting perspective on Kirill Kaprizov that I think we'll get to as well too, where some people see that maybe he isn't the full-fledging star because of the teams he's played. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that. But let's go back to the roster piece as well, kind of looking at where the potential spots might be. Kaprizov, Eriksson, Zuccarello, they're definitely going to be in the lineup. Fiala, Foligno, Sturm, Greenway, they're all going to be there, although Greenway, I think, needs to continue to play well in order to keep that position. Nick Bukestad, Gaudreau, and then Hartman, I think, are three guys that are going to stick as well too. The question marks here, I think you've got Victor Rask, Matt Boldy, Adam Beckman, Rem Pitlick, and maybe even Kyle Rao as maybe a depth guy that you can potentially put in the press box there. And you've only got really two spots there between Rask's spot and that extra winger spot to fill, five guys potentially that could fill that role. Who do you see slotting in the final two spots of that lineup? Is it Victor Rask and Matt Boldy? Does Rem Pitlick get a shot? What do you do with Adam Beckman at this stage? Does he get a shot early, or do you still send him down?
Yeah, the Rem Pitlick thing kind of makes things interesting for Adam Beckman. I think I want to see Adam Beckman make the team, but it looks like probably Rem Pitlick's going to be the 13th forward. The guy sitting in the press box, which is too bad. But Victor Rask, also they might place him on waivers, so and stick him in Iowa. It creates some interesting spots for sure for Billy G. And Kyle Rao always seems to be the guy, the in-betweener, driving from Iowa back to the big club up here. So, I would love to see Adam Beckman make it, but it sounds like with Rem, having him to play some on waivers again, it doesn't make much sense. So he seems like he's going to get all the chance to be that 13th forward. So you've got Victor Rask kind of slotted in there for now, potentially on that winger spot. Is Matt Boldy the guy that slots into that middle six somewhere? I think he has to be. He proved it late when he joined the Iowa Wild, coming off Boston College, exiting the NCAA tournament. All he did was put up points down there, and I think they're going to need a spark on the power play too. And so, he can play on that second unit and try to give him a spark. I wish he would have played in that Vegas series, but they didn't want him to start in a playoff game. But I'm really looking forward to his development. Everywhere he's been, he's put up points and dominated. I hope he gets a chance to not only play some heavy minutes, but also join the power play.
Alex, we talk about Victor Rask and, what he brings and maybe what he doesn't bring, but the real nature of the conversation is where is the center depth for this Minnesota Wild, right? There was lots of rumblings. Billy G even mentioned, that's the one area that we have to improve on. Minnesota was, linked to potentially a Jack Eichel trade, and knowing just how really wire the injury is, sort of the surgeries that, maybe are needed or / rehab, we can go off on a tangent on that whole situation. But, is really the biggest hole for this offense still in the center spot? And, or with the 3 signings on defense, are there some question marks in the back end too, between John Merrill, Dmitry Kulikov, and even maybe Jordy Benz?
Yeah, I'm more worried about the defensive depth now. Losing Carson Soucy and Suter, I think, is huge. I think Soucy was extremely underrated, and losing a guy like Ryan Suter, who played a ton of minutes and a lot of important minutes for this team. So, Jonas Brodin and Spurgeon can't play the entire game. So, it'll be interesting to see who gets those third pairing D minutes. I think, that's still important part to your team. It's also going to be interesting to see a guy like Eric Sneck, how he handles being a top line center. It's a lot different than what he was doing when he was playing on the third line. And so you face, the top pairing D a lot more. And there's going to be constant pressure on him. And so, just take a look at, like, when you play a team like Chicago, they'll be going up against Jonathan Toews. So one of the best centers in the game. In the face-off dot, that's huge too, huge part of being a top center. And so we'll see what he can do with Kirill and Zuccarello, who already have a really good chemistry, and they showed it last night too, with Kirill getting 2 goals. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Eck does in that top center spot, and then seeing how the Evison handles the depth guys back there on the back end, because these teams that they're playing in the Central, a lot more dangerous, a lot more powerful scoring offenses. So we'll see how it goes for sure.
That was my question, Noah. That's when you come in the fray.
Yeah, I was actually going to let you follow up, because I've been taking quite a bit of the questions, but nonetheless, I've only got 2 questions. Yeah, I was trying to be nice for once. I'm
shocked.
I've only got 2 questions for you. I'm going to start with a quick one here, Alex, because Nick and I have already given our predictions. Nick has Minnesota picked to finish 3rd in the Central. I actually have them as high as 2nd in the Central this year. Alex, where do you see this team finishing in their division? And are they potentially going to have a deep run in the playoffs, or is it going to be a first round exit once again?
Yeah, I have them finishing 3rd too. I have Vegas. I have Vegas winning the division, and then a lot of people think this is surprising, but I have St. Louis finishing 2nd. I think Jordan Bennington is the real deal, and he kind of had a tough season last year, but I just like the moves they made, and re-signing Colton Parayko, I think, was huge. He was a huge factor in them winning the Stanley Cup a few years ago. I think they're so well coached with Berube, watch out for St. Louis. They are tough. With the structure they play, it's incredible. But I think the Wild sneak in there. I think Cam Talbot's going to have to come up big, especially with the D depth, not as great as it's been. And so I think he's up to the challenge. And then, we'll see with 97 what he can do in 22 with Fiala. I think having those 2 just game changers, and they bring so much to the team, and can really carry a team's offense for sure.
Kaprizov is my next question, but Nick, I saw the question mark in your eye, so I want to clarify. By Vegas, did you mean Colorado in that first spot for the Central?
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to run together.
Not
Vegas.
I know. Sorry, I was
You're good.
Colorado. Sorry, I apologize. With with McKinnon, that top line, McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, it's incredible. And then getting Darcy Kemper, that's a huge pickup for them. Goaltending has always held them back, and so we'll see with him if he can actually carry them deep into the playoffs. Grubauer couldn't do it, and, he ends up in Seattle, and so I apologize. Yeah, Colorado for sure.
Yeah, I just
speaking of goaltending, Patrick Wise entered the chat, but but you bring up a point though, Alex. When you talk about Cam Talbot and the defensive depth, we talked a little bit the other day about the scheduling for this year, especially because they've included that 3-week break, which means it's a much more condensed schedule. And we talked about how, as good as Cam Talbot is, right, and I think he's going to get the majority of the workload, you are going to have to, I think, to be successful, also be able to rely on Kaapo Kähkönen a little bit, because you're going to have stretches. We have 3 games in 4 nights, a lot of back-to-backs. So you're going to have to give him rest, and especially in times where you really don't get a day rest. You're getting maybe 12 hours of rest. So how important for Cam Talbot's success is it going to latch on how good Kaapo Kähkönen is going to be?
Yeah, it's huge. Something that my dad has brought up is he thought that Kaapo got tired at the end of last year, and you could definitely see that too against St. Louis when he gave up like 9 goals in that one game. It just looked like he kind of ran out of steam. So I think conditioning is going to be huge for him, and continuing to develop as a pro and helping Cam Talbot out. Because like you said, there's going to be a lot of back-to-backs and condensed. And so, we're definitely going to need him, especially against a lot tougher teams in the Central. So, it's huge. And, some nights your forwards aren't going to have their legs. And so you need the backup goaltender to step up and get a shutout, or keep it 1-2 goal scorers to that game. And we'll see. I think he's up to the challenge. He's proven it, and we'll see if he can keep doing it.
Building off the forwards, this is my final question. As we approach 45 minutes, Alex, it's crazy how fast the time has flown. We appreciate you joining us. Kirill Kaprizov, number 97, in case those of you who have never picked up a television. No. Kirill Kaprizov, 9x5 contract for him. Is he the superstar that everyone thinks he is? Is this contract an overpay, or is this an investment for the future for a guy who will be a franchise player for Minnesota?
I think it's perfect. You take a look at Vancouver. They just signed Pettersson, or extended him to 3 years. So, that's, people are in Vancouver all worried that they're going to lose their superstar a lot earlier. And so, I think 5 is perfect. They met in the middle. I'm sure the Wild would want Kirill on an 8-year, but gives the Wild some time here too to continue to get some depth, and maybe try to get more centers, I think that's going to be huge. Kirill's watching, so, I think he's worth all the money. I think he's the best player in franchise history, over Gaborik. What he does, to the entire team, he just makes everybody play better, brings energy to the team. I would like, at some point, it'd be fun to see him play with Fiala. When those two are together on the power play, it's something else. But they'd have to find them a center, maybe X that guy. But yeah, it would definitely be fun to see those two superstars play together. He's definitely worth it. I'm glad it's 5 years. It's just, I mentioned it earlier, but anytime Fiala and him touch the puck, you have a chance to score. And so just they bring a different mentality to the teams. You see he's the Wild's version of McKinnon in Landeskog and Rantanen. So it's about time that the Wild have players like that. And it's up to Billy G to keep bringing in talent like that to the team. And they've continued to do that in the draft. And it's going to be exciting to see some of these young guys break into the NHL, like a Beckman and Kustendinov. And so, yeah, looking forward to seeing the future of the Wild too.
This is my final question, Alex. It's kind of a build off a little bit with Kaprizov too. As you mentioned, 5 years, $9 million. So this is where it gets interesting, right? For those who are looking at the Minnesota Wild cap hell, pardon the French, that it's going to be coming them even really starting next year, right? Because it's going to start with, I believe, $12 million and some change combined in the 2 years of 14. And you look at Kaprizov's contract, right? Starts today with 5, which means you have essentially his last final year where that relief is finally there after the 14 million. How difficult is it going to be to navigate for Bill Guerin and the squad to keep a team competitive enough to really show, hey, yeah, this is going to suck for a little bit, but we can be competitive. We can find the right pieces. You really are betting on your youth, your drafting, and your development process, whether it's within the organization with the Wild, down in Iowa, also having confidence in the GM. How tricky is that going to be for Bill Guerin to navigate these next 3 years? And I suppose part two of that is, does that mean they're going all in this year? Is this the best team he's putting on because it's going to be much more difficult these next 3 years? Or do you see more of a methodical, I guess, build up of the team the next, couple of years? Because again, money's just not going to be there to maybe attract those big name free agents like a Jack or somebody else that may be a free agent after the end of their current term.
Yeah, you can look at a team for comparison that I always look to is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, they're paying like 4 forwards, $40 million. So they take up a gigantic part of their cap space. You're paying Marner and Matthews and Nylander, Tavares, top money. So their GM, Kyle Dubas, you have to get very unique on how you fill out the rest of the roster. And you get cheaper veterans to sign on, like a Wayne Simmons and Jason Spezza. So, Billy G is going to have to be very creative, not only, hoping the youth can make it to the NHL at 20, 21, 22 years old, because they'll have their entry level contracts. And then also finding those cheap veterans that, want to continue their careers and then also, get a chance at trying to make a Stanley Cup run. So, that's what you're going to have to do. And like Billy G did with the defenseman late is fine. Veteran defenseman, maybe a little bit more rugged and hope that, you might not get the offensive production from the back, but, you can shut down teams and hope that youth up front can really score, like guys like Rossi and Boldy, and then hope for really sound goaltending back there too, because it'll be interesting to see, if they keep going with Cam or if they rock with Kakkonen and then Wallstead, very early too at some point. So yeah, it's going to be interesting couple of years for sure.
Alex, for those who, before we sign off here, for those of our viewers who maybe are unfamiliar with your work, I know you're definitely quite around in the hockey world there. Where could they find some of your work, and how maybe best to see some of the things that maybe you appear on as well?
Yeah, I'm starting to really ramp up hockey content here. It's awesome to join all these podcasts. I'm in a podcast with you with the MNCAA through the SodaPod affiliation with Isha and Scott, our State of Hoppy. I have also joined Locked On Wild with Seth Topol. So that's a really fun podcast. And the YouTube versions are out now too, which is fun. Going to be joining him on Mondays. And, kind of recapping the weekend in the NHL. And then just, joining 10,000 Takes, their Wild podcasts every now and then. And it's fun to join with you guys. And so, any hockey podcasts, I'm available to hop on and help out for sure.
And how about that new profile picture? Speaking of the YouTube version for Seth Topol, the nice little frown he's got on Twitter page. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it, I think it's Seth Toops is essentially what it is. Well worth your time.
Yeah, it's fitting for any Minnesota sports blunder. We continue to have those with our football team, so it's fun. Seth does an amazing job with Locked On. He has phenomenal guests. He's going to have Spoke Z on Fridays to get you prepared for the weekend, and so we nice bookends. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter too at Alex Micheletti. Put out a lot of clips and talk about all sorts of sports. So it's fun interacting with people and growing my brand and getting to talk college hockey is one of my favorite things too with you guys. So.
Well, definitely the purple and gold. We're talking about the Vikings. They go wide right, but won't be wide right as this matchup this weekend against the Huskies and the Mavericks. It's going to be an absolute basket no matter which way it goes there, Alex. I think there's one thing that also separates college hockey fans from the rest is no matter if both teams are going at it, it's a 1-0 win or a 10-9 just barn burner. There's always a couple of places to gather around to have a nice, relaxing beverage after the game and shake hands and, just enjoy the game of hockey. So Alex Micheletti, again, coming with us here on the Huskies Warming Up podcast, again, episode number 81. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. We'll definitely have to do this again. And I don't want to say good luck for you this weekend, but I probably should. It's going to be a great matchup, and I can't wait to watch some great hockey this weekend. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Looking forward to getting down there on Friday, going down with my dad and creating more memories. And I hope for a really competitive series for sure.
Didn't your dad know that Mariucci is up in Minneapolis, right? He hasn't lost, right?
Yes, he gets a lot of crap for doing St. Cloud games, but he loves college hockey and growing the game. And so it's fun to see him get to call St. Cloud games. So looking forward to being in the press box with them for sure.
Should be fun. I was going to have fun. We'll see you down there. If I might be traveling down there on Saturday. I won't be able to do Friday, but Saturday I might see you down there. But then again, Alex, have fun, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And once again, Nick, as always, it's great to have a guest on this show. A fantastic guest that we had today in Alex Micheletti. Nick, okay, let's talk a little bit more about this Mankato St. Cloud series to give it a little bit of preview. I want to kind of go back really quickly before we end the show as well, too. We didn't really actually get to talk about the rebound game that St. Thomas had because of the nature of when our show came out. What were your impressions on Sunday's matchup against St. Thomas? I think we finally got the response in the team in St. Thomas that we expected when they were able to stay out of the box for what would culminate to be an entire period's worth of penalties the night before. And then what are your expectations for this weekend?
Yeah, like you said, definitely more of a rebound on Saturday for St. Thomas. Also, it helps too that you shrink the ice rink down by 15 feet. That means for St. Cloud's offense or any offensive team, right? That's less time you have to survey the ice, less time you have to make decisions. And when the puck's on your stick, you have to know what you're going to do with it before you even get it on your tape. So I think that helps St. Thomas. For St. Cloud, I think they adjusted well. I think they knew that it was going to be a response game for St. Thomas, and they did. So, and your priority is not that you don't want to be offense, but you also got to make sure you're taking care of your own end. David Rennick getting, again, his shutout bid, 2-0 win for the Huskies. I think, they played a really good second game of that series, having to travel down, playing a different type of building, and also just understanding there's going to be a response too from that squad, especially when the score wasn't as lopsided as it was. If you're a player in that situation, you're going to come out with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. Yep. They weathered the storm, they settled down. And as you mentioned, having them being out of the box, that really does, help the flow of the game, especially for St. Thomas. So I really was impressed with St. Thomas, more of what I think we were expecting for, first and second game. And so it was good to see that it was a much closer matchup just in terms of where both teams were at. So I did really like the way that St. Cloud handled both games. Number one, they didn't take their foot off the gas in the first game, even though it did kind of get out of hand. Two, but also understanding that that you got to continue to replicate that same type of effort, and they definitely did in a little bit different way, a little bit more of a defensive first game for them, and really held them off the scoreboard when they didn't have as many special teams opportunities they did in game one.
Yeah, well, I first of all, I think it's important for us wishing from here on out now, St. Thomas, best of luck in their season. I think that as Huskies fans, obviously, like you mentioned, we were excited to see the Huskies come out and, completely dominate a hockey game to start the season. That's the start we were expecting. But I think the part of us, the hockey fan, the objectiveness in us said, we wanted St. Thomas to look a little better in that first night and feel like they belonged, so to speak. And I think they had some vindication, even though they didn't win the game on Sunday, a much better showing for them. And, they're not going to be an upper echelon team. I think that's fair to say, but I think a lot of people, especially after this weekend, have kind of written them off into the bottom third. I don't know. I think they still could be a middle of the pack team in college hockey this year. They have the capability. They have a couple of the roster pieces, the goaltending, the coaching to do it. They just, like you mentioned, I think on Sunday, they've had 13 guys that have played Div 1 hockey and 7 guys in that lineup that hadn't. So that's a big deal.
It is. And, quick side note, they have the right coach in Rico. They really, really do. He's a guy that's won 3 national championships as a coach. And as he mentioned to me when I talked to him on Saturday at the Herb, is that, the expectations are we just keep getting better every game. He doesn't have his arbitrary or, his sort of goals or expectations of standings or whatnot. All he wants is that, for your first season, there's going to be bumps, there's going to be learning curves, but if you can learn something every single game and continue to build, what you want to do is make sure you're trending up, right? I think they will. Rico's a hell of a coach. He's a hell of a human being too. He just really is the guy that cares for his players. He's a great teacher of the game too, which I think is something I don't think he gets enough credit for. And so they really do have, I think, the right person for the job. And I know St. Thomas, as you mentioned, maybe not going to be the team that's going to, per se compete for that upper lodge, but don't sleep on St. Thomas because it won't take them long before the recruiting starts to come in. Give it a couple of years, but this team is going to be better next year. They're going to be better the year after that. And pretty soon, again, as recruits in high school, they start to look their own for where they want to go. They're going to start to nab some talent. They're going to start to draw some people away from your St. Clouds, from your Minnesotas, from your Duluths, maybe even your North Dakotas. They're going to be in the mix, and it's going to be a smorgasbord of hockey talent to be playing in the state. And you want that, right? That's why they were brought in. They want to be competitive. You want to see these teams just be competitive so that way they make each other better, right? That's what this whole thing's about. And they got the first stage of college hockey. Plenty of steps to get better, but it's going to be fun to see their development as a program as it gets to the Division I realms.
Yeah, I would say, if you're kind of going across the board, quite literally on the map, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then if you really want to throw it over there, credit where credit is due, Massachusetts as well. You want to throw those 5 states in the mix. Watch all the teams from those 5 states, because it's going to be a very interesting time in the next couple of years for college hockey and the growth that Minnesota teams have had. North Dakota is always good. Wisconsin's always in the mix. Michigan's going to have a heck of a group there, especially if they can retain some of their top end guys. I think they're a lot more dangerous than people that give them credit for, although they are young. That is fair. And then, of course, UMass, Huskies fans know, a great hockey team still, even though they did get swept by Mankato. So it's going to be a tough test. It's going to be no easy game, not only in the NCHC, but the non-conference schedule as well. And we're excited to be here. We're excited to cover it all, excited to cover the games this weekend. And you're going to not want to miss it. Stay tuned. We're going to have a recap of the Mankato series on Sunday with our weekly show as always. And then we're working on a guest, hopefully solidifying that for the early part of next week as well. For Nick Maxon, I'm Noah Grant, and we will see you soon from the warming house down.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.